If you've been in Newburgh for any amount of time, you're probably familiar with the Austin family. Ken and Joanne Austin founded the dental equipment company A-dec, which is now the largest employer in Yamhill County. They were also behind the Allison Inn and Spa, which was actually just ranked as the #1 hotel in Oregon. Ken and Joanne were also well known for their major contributions to the Newburgh community through their foundation. Today, I'm interviewing Ken and Joanne's children, Ken Austin III and Loni Parrish, who have continued the parents' legacy of entrepreneurship and philanthropy. Ken and his wife Celia own Rain Dance Vineyards, as well as a successful llama farm, and Loni is the owner of Art Elements Gallery in downtown Newburgh. She has also been a major contributor in many efforts to improve downtown Newburgh, including the founding of the Chehalem Cultural Center. We talked about a lot of different topics in this episode, but still only scratched the surface of how the Austin and Parrish families are involved in Newburgh. In this episode, we'll be talking about the early days of the Austin family, how A-dec got started, the next steps of the Springbrook master plan, which was one of the major dreams of Joanne Austin, as well as Ken Austin's book, American Dreamers, and the various ways the Austin and Parrish families continue to contribute to our community. Hi, I'm Daniel Roberts, host of the Giving Town podcast, where we share stories of hope and generosity in Newburgh and the surrounding areas. We live in an amazing community full of incredible people who are all working to make Newburgh an even better place to live. This podcast is all about sharing those stories and helping people in our town be inspired, get involved, and have hope for our future. This podcast is also brought to you by my real estate team, the Joyful Roberts Group, and it's part of our mission to serve this community, not only by providing amazing service to our clients, but also to help Newburgh be an even better place to live. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home anywhere in or around Newburgh, reach out to us. We'll be happy to serve you. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Ken and Loni.
Well, Ken and Loni, it's so great to have you here on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about what you guys are doing in the community, what your parents have done in the community. I think it's going to be a great episode.
We're looking forward to it, too.
We are.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So, interestingly, the Austin name, and I guess the Parrish name as well, I think many people know the Austin name, maybe don't know how the Parrish and Austin name are related. But it's one of the most well-known names in Newburgh, and your parents specifically did a lot for this community, and a lot of people know what they did, a lot of people don't know. But for people who maybe are newer to the community or just haven't heard, can you share a little bit about your parents and how they impacted Newburgh?
Sure. You want to go first?
Sure. A lot of it was related to how they could make Newburgh a better place to live. And a lot of it was foresight by my mother, looking at, she ended up buying a couple houses next to the Newburgh Public Library, got the library to expand. Working with Joanne Austin School, they donated the land for that if the city of Newburgh passed the school bond to build it. And then they gave George Fox a bunch of land where their tennis courts now are. And they've also accumulated a large amount of land in the urban growth, in the city limits of Newburgh. And it wasn't really planned as much as it just happened. It started with Dad growing up on a farm. The neighbors, if you had your mower on the back of the tractor, you just went down alongside the road, mowed it, whatever. And Dad did that for the neighbors. He'd along Springbrook and then Crestview, and he'd start mowing. And a lot of times, many of the residents were elderly, and when they moved into Friendsview, they'd offer them the ability to purchase their property. And so that's how a lot of the land got accumulated. It wasn't a planned event. It just occurred.
My mom called herself a land lover. And Ken and I have that too. But, I think all of that became possible too because of this company that they started back in Colorado. And the only reason they started is my dad couldn't keep a job. Seriously, and had 2 small children to support. And he had this idea. And there's this famous quote how Mom said that she'd support him, and even if we had to live on bread and beans. And so he came back to Newburgh, where both of their families were from. My father's side has been here for generations. We actually live out on the family homestead, and then her parents came here in the 40s from Minnesota. But they came back home, really more selfishly because they needed help with the kids and family. My mom came from a big family, so they helped work there. All my uncles and aunts, or like my aunt was the second employee and stuff like that. And then when it became successful, that's when they were able to make these financial contributions. But prior to that, as for example, the work that women were allowed to do in that era were like cannery jobs and things. And my mom really wanted to have a place for women to work, that they could be home in time for the kids to get home from school, and they could, take their kids to school and come work. So a lot of the job opportunities that A-dec had at that time were like assembly jobs and things. And she was specifically thinking about a safe, clean environment for women to work. Yeah. They really believe in taking care of their employees, and Ken will talk about the A-dec Way later. But they provide good insurance and benefits and continuing educate, all kinds of wonderful opportunities. So they just were doing that as they brought their business home and want to. It's very important to our family, and one of our core values is to give back to this community, because without this community, the A-dec wouldn't exist. Yeah. And we all know that very well, and we appreciate and admire everyone that's helped made it be what it is today.
Well, and a lot of people may not even be aware that A-dec stands for Austin Dental Equipment Company. So it's the largest employer, right, in
Yandell County.
And, in all of Yandell County.
Mm-hmm. Now it is. It's big. It grew, again.
So how did A-dec get started? We'll get into a lot of the other things that your parents did, but how did that start?
I can't remember the number of jobs Dad had, but the last one, well, I'll go back. He worked for a company in Portland called Power Break, and they had a little dental division called Encore. And he was in charge of assembly and manufacturing of this dental division. And so what happened, he worked there for a couple of years, and Dad's dream was to be an automotive engineer. Well, Power Brake was truck brakes, so he was headed the right way, and they had this little dental division. He got moved over to that, and he quit that job and found a job in Denver. And so we've been in Denver for about a year and came back to Newburgh to see family and friends. And when we got back, Dad's desk was in a box. Oh. You hear he got fired. We're in Denver, didn't know, kind of what are we going to do?
And how old were you guys at this time?
I was just born. You were...
let's see. We moved back there at 10, about 11.
Yeah, no, I went to kindergarten, so I wasn't just born. Yeah.
But about 11. And so we're back there, and I say we went fishing, and Dad had an idea, and he talked to Mom. I got this idea, and Mom said she'd support him starting a company. And so he sold the first product, exclusive with a company called...
Tell him what we called it.
The name, they called it AVS, and Loni and I called it Super Saliva Sucker.
Yeah. It was the vacuum.
Air vacuum system for
the gunk out while they're working. There wasn't anything to pull that fluid, that the air and water they're blowing in to clean it out, and he created that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so.
And you helped him test it.
Oh, yeah. I went down to the local gas station because that was the only place that had compressed air and, air hose. And back then they had tanks to check for leaks in your tire. And so, or inner tubes, and we're playing around. He was sucking water out of a tire tank. Mm-hmm. And so that's how A-dec got started. It was really a dream. not to grow. It was provide a reasonable income for our family. And with Dad had a very unique ability to listen to people and take their ideas and be able to create product that satisfied a need. And then he was also a great salesman, but he wasn't a business person. That was Mom. So they complemented each other.
Very much.
And the first employees didn't get paid for like 2 months until Mom came out and did payroll. I mean, it's the old history is quite interesting.
So this was started back in Colorado.
The designs were done back there, and production actually started here in Newburgh.
Okay.
Downtown on Blaine Street, there was a little Quonset hut, and they used to joke, butt to butt in the hut.
There were two. One of them's still there.
Yeah.
On Blaine. The yoga place was in it, and then I think it's been a flower.
Wedding
it's still
shop.
there. It's still there.
Is it like downtown on Blaine?
Yeah, by the
Yeah, it's
post
right
office.
across the street from the post office.
Wow.
And the original one got purchased by the employees as a Christmas gift, and it's on the A-dec campus.
Okay.
The original Quonset hut.
Oh, so they actually moved it over to the...
Well, it went up to... They sold
was a
it
barn
to,
for a while.
It was a barn, and anyway,
Anyway, long story.
So what was that like for you guys? I mean, so you were young, right? So what's the age difference between you guys? About saying how old?
5. 5 years.
old.
So you were about 11, you were about 6. What was it like? I mean, I guess at that point you didn't have much of a comprehension. It's like, oh, Dad's just doing his thing. Like, what was that like, kind of being uprooted and say, okay, I guess Dad's starting this company?
We didn't think, we had gotten uprooted and moved to Colorado and moving back home. Different neighborhood, but family was here. The move really I don't remember anything.
One of the big floods happened when we came back. That was interesting. But no, our family was here, so it was nice to be back home. We have, 13 cousins. So we have a big and that was great. It was weird, though, one of your questions asked about growing up in the business. And that's something I've struggled with personally about, you're a normal kid with just like your other friends. And then as the company became successful and you have people, like by the time I was in high school, a lot of the students' parents worked for us. And if anything happened at work, you could, and then they would call me names and it was hard. You got out of Newburgh before they got successful.
I was
and then we
4 years ahead of her. And it was still kind of very unique. I don't think there was 100 employees at the time, so it was quite small. But what I really, you asked that question, was the dinner table was kind of the main area of business being conducted. And one of the things I did, got asked by the School of Business at Oregon State to make a table for the Dean of Business School new office. And so I made one. And to me, I called it the dinner table because most businesses in Oregon are small businesses, family run. And guess what? Dinner tables were 90% of the major businesses conducted.
So as you got older, so what was the progression of, so you're in high school, you had gone to college, the company was kind of continuing to grow. So what was that growth period like? Because at that point you kind of recognize, okay, Mom and Dad have this successful business, they're kind of becoming, I guess, a wealthy family in town and that you're a part of that. How did that, do you think, shape you, like as you grew up with that? Because I mean, like you said, you are having to deal with people calling names and I think there's obviously, a lot of envy. Like you see, you're seen as like, oh, they're the rich kids. But for you guys, you're just normal kids, normal people. So what was that?
For me, it was, I didn't know the difference. And I still, really don't know. Okay, jokingly, I say I have no money except what's in my pocket. And so I still carry cash. Mm-hmm. I use a credit card, but it's what I carry. If I want to get say a hamburger or pop or something, I got to have the cash or I don't do it. Mm-hmm. So it's still very humble means. I think at least Loni and I both have very humble roots. It's okay, maybe instead of a beat-up Ford pickup, I got a new one, but it's still very humble type thing. It's anyway.
I think for me, our parents, the expectations grew as the company grew, and we were raised with a lot of, this is yours, you will be responsible, you need to do this, you need to go to college, and I was very rebellious. I think because I wanted my own, I could tell that this company could suck me in and have to become what they wanted me to be. And I'm sure that's why I am an artist, because that is something that my parents had no part of.
Okay.
I can't buy it. I can't, it's my talent, my creativity, my saving grace. It's what really helped me adjust life.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so passionate about art for the community. So I felt a lot of expectation, a lot of guilt and shame, a lot of I don't deserve. I'm also very empathetic towards people, so I want to help a lot. My mom called me a softie, which is, I think, a very good thing. And that's also comes from them, though, because that's who they were. They always gave back. We come from two very giving families. When they were, my mom grew up really poor, and they would still give whatever they could to their neighbors. And my dad, too, that they lived on a very humble farm and stuff. So, but yeah, growing up in a small town with wealth is very challenging. So, I just try to be the best person I can be and who I am, and but it was a struggle. I got into alcohol at an early age. I thought, in the book, Dad talks about is alcoholism, but I thought that was a normal way to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we'll get to the book in just a minute too, so I do want to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things is, your parents did a lot between the Allison, A-dec, Austin Industries, the Austin Family Foundation.
Uh-huh.
Can you share a little bit about how all those work together, how the different pieces fit?
Well, they're all A-dec, Allison, and the property are all part of the family assets. Austin Industry, I'm going to say, doesn't manage, but keeps track of all the entities and how they flow into the family. And Austin Industries, if we want to start I'm going to say woodworking, which I already do, but they will monitor, help us with bookkeeping or whatever we need to get started. So that they support the family. Austin Industries supports the family in doing what they feel they need to do. Now, the foundation, it falls under Austin Industries and is managed out of the Austin Industries.
They call the Austin Industries what is typically called a holding company.
Okay.
And then if it was like a family tree, it'd be Austin Industries, A-dec, the foundation, the property, the Allison, any of the enterprises. And they oversee to make sure that we're following the legal stuff, work with attorneys, accountants, and things like that. But they don't run A-dec. A-dec is run by the management team and a board of directors. The foundation has its own board of directors. and each of the entities. But Brian Naffin is the head of our family office, and he's just doing an incredible job managing all that. It's crazy, between all of us and all of our little enterprises, and I don't know how they keep it straight. And I don't know how people work for us either, because we run in there like, so they're great. They're awesome people. So, but I was going to say with that, they still have the same value set that our family has throughout all of the companies. And Kenny was going to refer to this about the A-dec Way, which is something in the book that is a valuable tool that we use to kind of guide our lives in our companies.
I do want to get to that. I did have a question first with the way your parents, like you mentioned at the beginning, like with the acquiring of land and always having the desire to give back to Newburgh. One of the things that I guess more recently, and I guess recent history, however you want to call it, was the Springbrook master plan, which was mostly your mom, right? Wasn't that mostly her?
Well,
yeah.
It was her dream. Lonnie, my wife,
Celia,
and Ashley helped a little bit, and Grant helped a little bit, helped draft that. And when we did it, we didn't have, there was need for housing, but it wasn't like it is today. We have since found that part of the land is on an old ancient landslide, so you can't build on it without a lot of work.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But what it has done is we've got Hess Creek, which we're turning into a natural preserve. So we're going to have hiking trails through there, and
it's really
cleaning
exciting.
up, getting rid of the invasive species and like ivy. What's the blackberry? Anyway,
Blackberries. The
blackberries.
Yeah, that one's, and it had nothing to do with the faults. We found that out in a new recent geological survey. So our nature preserve just got bigger, which is great. Yeah. I think that's great. So Polish Homes has purchased the west side from Hess Creek corridor over to College Street, and they'll be breaking ground and building houses this year.
Really?
That's the hope.
And that's the Colina.
Or at least.
Yeah. And then we have been working on that, the Hess Creek acreage. It's a nonprofit, and it will have, like Ken said, trails, but we've already been cleaning out the invasive species for a couple of years now, I think.
Just about a little over a year.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to build a bridge so that pedestrians can get off of that nasty dip.
Okay.
Yeah, so that should get started pretty soon, too. So we're very excited about that.
That's going to be exciting, because that was the final draft of that, or not final, but I guess maybe the first draft is a better way of saying it, was back in 2008, right?
It was a long time ago.
So, which obviously wasn't a great time for.
Well, that's when they announced we were in a recession, just like.
Yeah.
Which is cool to build Allison during the recession. There's really a great story, especially like with the art, because I curated the art. Ken and Celia helped me a lot. But people weren't buying art. And we did. And we filled the rooms with all original art and the stories that the artists shared. And that was one of the most heartwarming things I've ever done, was to be able to provide some stipend for some artists during that time. It was cool.
So the Allison really was kind of the first part of the Springbrook master plan, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, absolutely.
And which actually was interesting, talking about the book American Dreamers, which we'll get to. So I want to make sure I'm pronouncing his name right.
Tim Chuck. I know, that's a funny one.
He just came and spoke at our Rotary Club, at the Noon Rotary Club. So I was doing a little bit of research about the book, and I was like, who's this Tim Chuck guy? And then he's there speaking, which I thought was so funny, but he made a joke that, I don't know if this is actually true, but that your dad said that he gave your mom an unlimited budget for the Allison and she exceeded it. That was kind of a joke. I don't know if
anyway, yeah.
I'm sure he told Carrie that.
Yeah, Dad.
He and Scott didn't want anything to do with it. Well, they were busy with A-dec, right? And then we were over spending a lot of money.
But that's an amazing end. I mean, that is one of the top.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, even just objectively, when you look at how it ranks in Oregon, I mean, that's really a huge draw for people.
Well,
here.
they just got ranked number 1 in the state and Portland for the U.S. News.
I think, yeah.
Oh, wow, never won.
Number 1.
Yeah, it's, she told me, but Mom had incredible foresight. She was such an amazing businesswoman. She's, again, I want to just be normal, right? Don't want any fancy hotel with my name on it, right? Because when we were talking about rates, and I'm like, how do people, anyway. And she's like, Loni, this is going to impact the entire, not only Newburgh, but the county and statewide. And I'm like, no, it's not. I don't know what you're talking about. Yep, maybe Newburgh, but in what way would that be, And I'll be darned, it did, because there was nowhere to stay for the wine tourism, really. Just some bed and breakfast and things, and it really had a huge impact.
Well, in the art as well. I mean, from my understanding, that was a huge catalyst for Newburgh kind of becoming a local arts scene, wasn't it? Or was that already kind of a burgeoning thing before the Allison?
Newburgh's been a hub of artists for long before the Allison came.
Yeah.
But to support and accentuate and celebrate the art has been huge. But I think the cultural center is probably the hub of that one.
Yamhill County
Coalition
does an art tour in the fall, and that's been going on probably at least 10 years before the Allison even got.
Ken and I were one of the first people. I have a poster with he and I showing art in it way back in the day.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's been amazing art here.
But that has to feel good for you, though. I mean, like you said, you were an artist, and that was kind of one of your passions. And I do want to get into that and how kind of you started with that. Quickly jumping back to with the master plan. So, how do you pronounce it? Is it Polish or Polish?
Polish.
Okay. So they bought the west part. Are there any current plans for over where like the old schoolhouse is and over there?
Very exciting.
This is one where the guys and girls do not have we're not on the same page. But I will say we want to develop it.
We're dusting off the plans, and we're bringing our third generation. We call them the G3s. We're generation 2, Mom and Dad were number 1. In to help reevaluate, and we'll be hiring someone to look at what makes sense. Now, I would hope, and this is what we argue about, saving that building. It's like, of course we're going to save the building. It's a historic site. It's not, that's what I do is remodel old historic buildings, right? It's not a big deal, but, to the guys, I'm like, oh, tear it down, build a new one, right?
But take good measurements so it looks like the old.
No, anyway, but we'll see what really happens with that.
Yeah.
But, the steeple to the church is stashed away in one of our barns.
Oh, wow.
There used to be a chapel there, and so the dream was to rebuild that in a small venue. You could have weddings there, yoga classes, whatever, and a red electric coffee shop, and just some stuff. Simple ideas all the way up to having some retail and housing. And
yeah. Well, because in a master plan, that whole area was kind of like a plaza, like a place where people could come. And I know my opinion doesn't count for much, but I'd love to see the old schoolhouse stay and your model. So don't hate me, Ken. But
if you go
you're
in,
going to lose, bud.
I know, but
we'll just vote. I can tell you already on Facebook.
The basement or the lower floor is only about 8 feet high, so you got to raise it up, and then you got to get an elevator so people, handicap accessibility is two big issues. But
yeah, well, I'll let you guys do the argument for that, but I think it is a special thing.
It is.
And I'm sure you can always pull the card what Mom would wanted. And
yeah, we already know she rebuilt it. I mean, we have the steeple in our thing. We took a lot of photographs of the area. She was very involved in the arts and loved the arts and wanted to have us to rebuild the old cannery there in a modern style, that we could have artists studios and have them sell their work, like the Torpedo Factory back in Virginia. That was her model that she had wanted to do. So we'll take a look at it. We might have a really cool art kind of museum thing coming too. So yeah, we got fun stuff.
So as far as the next phase of the plan, do you have any idea when that stuff might happen? I know planning can take a long time, especially.
Yeah, you know that being in the real estate
We
business.
have no idea. We'll proceed when in our own manner, how we want, with the new generation coming on board and their input, but also what the market or the city of Newburgh needs.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
I would say 3 years at least for this, the planning part. It just takes a long time. So hopefully something will, but there'll be plans out there. It'll take at least this year to get someone on board, a year of figuring it out, and then a year of design, and so, yeah.
Well, I have the utmost respect for people like you who do development are involved, because I don't have the patience for it. For me, I'm like, okay, it should take, a few months, we can get all this done, and recognize, oh no, there's a process that takes time, and you have to have a meeting and then reconvene, yeah.
Well, when you work as a family, that means you got to make sure 5 schedules fit, and it's a lot easier just doing it on your own. But yes, that's
exciting though. There's a lot.
It's really exciting.
So back to the book though, we mentioned it kind of briefly on American Dreamers. Can you give an overview of that book? What led was it mostly your dad, or did your mom have any input?
She didn't want to be part of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
She felt it was bragging. And so she would never interview. Carrie she wouldn't.
Dad wrote it with Terry wrote it with Dad's help. I don't, however you want to call it. And going through it, I've read it multiple times, and I think it's a good way to get a feel what type of person he was, some of the things. Now, being his son, I have a different perspective than what he said, but in general, I agree with what it said. I think Loni will probably agree with me. There were certain things he'd do that just blew you away, that he doesn't talk about. But
So for people who haven't read the book, or for maybe just our readers, what's kind of I know you can't give a whole summary of the book in just a few sentences.
I think probably how a bunch of things happened to Dad throughout his life. Boy Scouts, a professor down at Oregon State that took him under the wings in the school of engineering. Otherwise, he would have never graduated. Rotary, he was a firm believer in Rotary. And then what happened, they hired a general manager back before they he was working there before they wrote the A-dec Way, and he didn't understand how they made decisions. He wanted a decision now, this will make us the most money, and they would say, no, we don't do it that way. Why? We just don't do it. And, people ask, well, how do you make up your mind? How do you know? And I think the A-dec Way embodies their thought process, and it embodies, we grew up with it, so unless something we look at it, it's second nature to us, but it was how they were brought up. Both of their parents grew up in the Depression era. Grandma Austin she was a history buff and a genealogist, and she did all of her notes on envelopes. She'd open up, and that was her paper. Never threw anything, very rarely threw anything away. But so if you go through and read the A-dec Way, or
American Dreamers,
you'll understand that, they weren't out to make money. They just wanted to make enough for a living. They treated the employees the way they wanted to be treated. So if it's kind of like the Ten Commandments. It's how you interpret it, but it's really, how do I want to, if I get up, go to work, I want to feel like I did a great job, they appreciate me, and I'm a valued employee. And what I say can make a difference to the overall effect of the company.
And so for people who haven't ever heard, this is the first time hearing this term, the A-dec Way. What is the A-dec Way?
Is it 16 principles?
Yeah, they've added on to it, but they were to begin with 10 principles. Care for people's number one. They're really great, and then they have people do this now, but back in the day, that was back in the 70s. No one had a code of ethics or thing like that. That was something that they did because the general manager didn't understand their philosophy. So I reread the book again, and it was today. For today, I'm sure every time I read it will be different because it's going back in my childhood, but. It was just a fun, light read, I thought. And It's a story about a young couple that had strife and, hard time keeping a job with a dream, and they made it happen. So it's kind of this love story, American dream, that it really can happen. And along the way, it has tidbits where, I think one of the things that... was really important that Dad spoke of early was his ego. That's why he kept losing jobs, because he always thought he was better, his way was better, And even when he talked about his alcoholism, how, his form of alcoholism was special. It wasn't, and the reality is we're all the same, right? It really, truly, and he gets to that point. So that's something that is a really good... value in life, is to keep an eye on your ego, because it's sad, because in the end, what happened in his life was his ego came back. When he lost Mom, he lost his guide, he lost his anchor and his rudder, and so it was easy to have people build his ego and kind of create. Anyway, that's another piece of the story that is a shame that had happened, but it did. The other thing is just about working hard and giving back and believing in yourself and your dream and going for it. And, I think it's a great story. And so it was fun to, and I think from someone that doesn't live it, that doesn't really what happened, that they did enjoy it. People like the book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Might inspire someone.
Kind of one of the takeaways, though, also is, if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of you. It's
true.
It's very true, and so.
She'll have to keep that in mind as I have both my parents working for me, kind of the opposite.
Yeah, I was listening to your podcast today about working with your folks. It's family business is interesting.
Yeah,
it truly is.
I don't think there's ever such a thing as being your parents' boss, though. We'll make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
So, growing up with your parents, growing up with the A-dec Way, how do you feel that shaped both of your entrepreneurial journeys? And you kind of then took that and were involved in some ways, but you kind of took your own paths and yours too.
Absolutely.
I was in college. And Dad had developed a pneumatic lock for prisons. And he said, "Here, it's yours if you want to run with it." Worst mistake I could have done. Didn't know what I was doing. But on the other hand, I learned a tremendous amount by the School of Hard Knocks, but I also became quite astute in designing pneumatic valves, how to make parts that go round or on a lathe, and did that. And I am still not. I say not nuts and bolts, but I look at the big picture, not the details. I can look at the details, but I'm not good at it. Dad and I'd sit in a room and we'd talk a design, and we'd be saying one thing, talking about something 3 steps down the road, and people couldn't understand where we were coming from. So I learned to design. I learned a lot of my strengths. And when I ended up selling the business and started working at A-dec, and realized very soon I didn't fit in the corporate world. I am kind of a lone duck out, it's kind of like, that's not the way I do it. Very similar personality as Dad. Got into farming, got into woodworking, still into woodworking and still into farming. Different areas, but still in. And my woodworking, I could call myself a wood butcher because I take beautiful chunks of wood and make them into beautiful pieces of furniture or something. But it's so that's kind of how I got into the entrepreneurial side. And would I do anything else? I couldn't sit behind a desk for 8 hours a day or whatever. I did. I wore a tie every day but it's not my style.
You're cut from the same cloth, it seems. How about with you, Loni?
Well, I, being the one bucking the system, I grew up, I was in high school in the 70s, and all my friends were dropping out and getting their GEDs, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do, I don't see a lot of value in staying in high school. I was really into horses and art, and my folks were like, that's just not an option, you aren't going. So I had one friend left, and she and I did greenhouse together, which was super fun and things like that. And we really enjoyed our last few years of high school. But and then I trained horses for work release. That was my world, and did a lot of showing and stuff. And so here comes the college expectation, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to college, right? And they're like, yes, you are, and you're going to go to a sorority, and you're going to marry a businessman, and you're going to take care of A-dec. Like, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm going to be an artist. So I bartered with them. It's like, I'm not, So I got them down to I could be an art major if I took business classes. They gave up on the sorority. I lived independently. So guys, I never did take a business class. It was great. Anyway, it was really wonderful. The biggest thing, though, this was funny so I got my way with being an art major. And then I said, and I really want to go to U of L because they have a bigger art department. That's where they actually drew the line and say, absolutely not. You're going to be a beaver. Dad's the first Benny Beaver. We bleed orange, So anyway, it's always a funny joke.
That must have felt like treason to them.
Oh, it had to have been. So anyway, I got my way and got to do art, which I think, honestly, my folks are really proud of me, and especially with my entrepreneurism. That's what they always told me. I mean, they created me. Like, you can do anything you want. I believed that I could, and I was capable. And which sounds egotistical, because I do have a lot of fears about things, but I don't hesitate with stuff like fixing that building. I don't think that's a big deal. You just get the right people, and you learn how to do it, and you can do it. So I'm really grateful to them for that, and we've taught our kids that too, that you can be and do whatever you want. My mantra is that you work really hard, and you do your passion, and that you give back to the community. And those are my rules.
Yeah.
I can remember, do whatever you want,
They'd say that. Mm-hmm.
They'd say that. And so, I mean, I got to explore manufacturing. I used to. Today, with all the new electronics, I haven't a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
but still I understand the basics of manufacturing. I feel very comfortable. I can walk out or walk into any machine shop. It's the Tiger Manufacturing was in Austin Industries last year.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And I'd walk in and look over and see what these kids are machining parts, and they'd probably look at me, what's this old fart doing into what's he know about what's going on? And anyway, so, but when I started woodworking, I was surprised how much Dad acknowledged what I could do with a piece of wood. I was really amazed. I think both of them were proud that Loni became an artist and did things in the art world. I went from working with metal to working with wood. And how we raised our kids, they were excited and really proud of their grandchildren. So,
yeah. Can you share also some of the projects and visions that you guys have now? So you've kind of grown up with a family, you kind of took your paths, and now with the ways that you're giving back, you both have done quite a bit to help really continue your parents' vision of helping Newburgh become. And I want to acknowledge as well, Newburgh, I think, is what it is. And honestly, like the reason I named this podcast The Giving Town is Newburgh has a very generous heart, a generous nature, which I think your parents were really major catalysts for that. I think they set an amazing example, both for you guys and for the community. So anyway, just want to acknowledge, I think it's just important to give honor where honor's due.
Thank you. That's
thank
nice.
you.
How's that affected you guys and kind of some of the visions that you have now?
Well, somewhere along the way, Mom said, let's work with Oregon Community Foundation and set up a foundation. And I think I said, well, okay, there's 6 of us. We each put in 1/6, and majority rules. And so that was really how the next generation, or the G2s, got involved in really giving, other than small amounts. With that, one of the things that foundation did, we really wanted to work with people, and we donated money to organizations that just didn't do one time. They set up a program that would continue once funding stopped.
And to give back. Yeah,
it was a lot of, we'll give to you, but you've got to keep it going. Love Inc. was one of the best ones I think we ever, they were just starting out. We helped them.
Yeah, no one really knows much about this part of, because it was through the Oregon Community Foundation. The name of it was the Trillium Fund. It was founded 24 years ago.
Okay.
So we've been giving together as a family, the 3 families, for a long time.
No, it's the 3 families, so you and Scott, you and Celia, and then
Mom and Dad.
your parents. Okay.
They got outvoted for the first time. That was a big deal. That's why it's called Trillium, because of the 3 families.
Okay. I
Yeah.
like that. So it's not about the trillium flower, or is it?
Well, it kind of is, because it has the 3 petals, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 3 families. That was
like
yeah.
that.
Celia
Yeah.
actually came up with that.
Yeah, see,
it was great. She doesn't talk a lot, but boy, when she does, it's really good stuff. So yeah, I remember outvoting Mom for the first time.
She was.
They weren't used to
You
that.
can see steam coming out of her.
So anyway, but that's a lot of it. When questions about how we fund things with the large foundation, which was created after Mom passed in 2015, those are a lot of relationships that we've been having over the many years of giving, because that's the invitation one.
Okay.
We have 2.
So how do the 2 foundations work together?
Well, Trillium is still kind of a standalone.
Yeah, it's still in existence if people are interested. It focuses on people doing volunteerism.
Okay.
So we did a lot, like with Habitat for Humanity, Serve Day at the college, and they were smaller grants. We didn't put the kind of money that's in the Austin Family Foundation.
Now, Austin Family Foundation has the main grant giving, the large one, and then they've got a small grant program where you can apply for max $5,000 or $10,000.
No, it's 10, and it's really easy. I'd love to talk about that because this one, we are really wanting to give money out quickly and effectively to the Newburgh and surrounding area. It's 20-mile radius of Newburgh.
Okay.
And it's simple online process. We give up to $10,000
So that's
monthly.
separate from the one that's
It's still the Austin Family Foundation, but it's called the Small Grants Fund. So if you were to go to austinfamilyfoundation.com, someone else already had .org, football player, not us. So it's austinfamilyfoundation.com, and then you'll see about grants. You click on small grants, and then you just have to go to the upper left and create a profile. Super simple. Just you need your budget, your idea, how many people it serves, who they serve. Really easy. We meet once a month and give money out.
Okay.
And we need more people to ask.
So, which is really interesting because there's another part of the foundation which is invitation only, right? Mm-hmm. And I think my impression was I didn't realize there were two parts. So I think I wonder if many people had the idea like, don't ask because then, you're not supposed to with invitation only. So that's really good to know. Are there specific types of organizations or causes that you're looking to give to? Because I imagine you have a criteria.
Well, you have to be a 501c3. You have to be a legal nonprofit organization. So that takes the individual off the table, or somebody trying to send their kid to a special camp. Those sorts of things don't work, but we're very open to the different areas. We really focus on like health and human services, education, early childhood education, STEM projects. We support. There's very few things that we don't support, and it's usually it falls under they're not a nonprofit, or they're it's very, very wide, and that's the best way for us to get eyes on you for the big one. And we've come into more money. Our dad's estate closed, so we're giving more money away now, some really large grants at the large grant level, and it's really important to find more entities. So our small grant is based on community, health, and education. Those are really big windows, right? Yeah, up to 10,000, and sometimes we can go up to 20. And then the large one, our focus, which is the invitation. But like if we hear about this really, like for example, we heard about the Carlton Observatory. We're like, oh, that sounds really cool. They should ask for a small grant. So we just wrote to them and said, hey, you ought to come check us out, right? And that might be something for us to look at because it falls into education and things. So the large one is we have a focus on CTE and STEM, which is very exciting. That arm's going to get going with the bond money that has gone through, and they're really doing some great stuff at the high school. Early childhood development and the mental behavioral health. And most of the money we've spent so far has been in the mental health. We were able to bring in counselors for all of the schools.
Wow.
It started with, the first thing we did was a study to find out what was going on in Yamhill County. So we have a really good roadmap of what is needed. And that was also during the time that there were so many suicides going on. This is a horrible time. We brought in, with the help of Oregon Community Foundation, all of the people in Yamhill County that were doing work in mental health. That was the first time. I had no idea that they'd all been in a room together and talked about what each other does. So I've had people tell us, like, that was a catalyst for us to begin to work together, which was super cool.
Yeah. Because
the bridges they've built and the care that they do now is just phenomenal. The majority of the money has gone for that. Homelessness, that kind of mental health sort of stuff, the crisis stuff that's going on. But we're looking forward to doing more STEAM and STEM. Yeah. Get opportunities for kids going.
Yeah.
Big grant. We did a big grant for Virginia Garcia. Trying to think of that. They're McMinnville.
The workforce. I don't remember
It's something house.
we talk about Juliet's house?
Juliet's
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about
And were you guys involved with the family place? Was that one of them?
who done a lot
Yeah,
with the
that's
family place.
one. One of the things we do get, with our involvement in the community, however, family place, I found out, and I still call it the diaper place, but they were they came to Rotary talking about handing diapers out to people. So I immediately went back to the family and said, we need to look into these folks.
Yeah, Ken's brought us a lot of people through Rotary. The Zone, My Zone, that
My Zone,
program.
I mean,
there's so many
they
things we support because we heard of it at Rotary.
I'm not even sure what my zone is.
It's where we meet at Rotary, that church. They have an after-school program for middle schoolers. And the school district provides a bus to take them from whatever schools is involved, drop them off, and they give them...
It's all kind of programming, yeah.
They've got food available. They've got couple people that might know how to play an instrument. Kids are playing instruments. A couple people help them on their homework. They can play games. They can shoot hoops. And My Zone is really, I think, hopefully a game changer for these middle schoolers that they've got something for high schoolers. They got something for younger kids, but the middle school is just kind of left there. They go home to an empty house, maybe nothing to eat.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity.
Yeah, that's really great. And they've expanded that. That was one of the things that we asked, just like, this program's awesome. Can you expand it? And they now do it at Edwards after school, too.
Or bring students from Edwards. So
Yeah.
it's really a neat program.
Yeah. It's Northwest Christian Church does that, all of that.
I think I need to talk to Northwest Christian Church. They do a lot of...
I don't know how they
incredible.
did. I was talking to one of the ministers there. I want to say Dave.
Yeah, Dave Case.
Yeah. I said, what's going to happen when you retire? Who's going to, his comment, I'm not going to retire. Anyway, but yeah, they do great work.
Because I volunteer at Loving and do some of the intakes there, and they do, we see the different churches who can do the different contributions, and Northwest Christian is always doing, I don't know, they kind of blow maybe not all the, but almost all the other churches out of the water. It's a big example of what a church should be in my mind.
And they have such a huge volunteer base. You had mentioned earlier about Newburgh being a giving town. I think they have been, my folks fit into that, but my theory is it's because they had such a large amount of churches, and that our thought is just to give back, and the Quaker roots of helping others. And I think because Newburgh is a very giving town, it really is. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's a good point too. I hadn't really considered with the Quaker roots and all that. So I think I need to brush up on my own history too of this town, and maybe that would be a podcast. Maybe Carrie might want to come and
Carrie's awesome. He's really cool.
George Edmond has a lot of good books he's done a lot of writing about the community.
George Edmond.
He wrote The Grubby End. It's the story of two Newburghs. There was the Quaker Newburgh, and then there was the pioneer Grubby End of Newburgh.
Was he the one that started I think I met him actually. That actually sounds familiar. And I think he just recently moved. But didn't he start the Newburgh Historical Society?
I think so.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. He seems like a great guy too. So but he has books. I didn't realize that he had books on it.
Yeah, I think they're in a couple places that sell history of Newburgh type books. Chapters would probably have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would guess.
Well, one of the other things I know that you guys had involvement with was and I didn't have this prepared, and I was just now thinking about it, the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. And Carrie Bates recently, a little while back, it was on a podcast. She mentioned her experience with that. And didn't your parents have a major part to do with getting that up? And so can you share a little bit about that?
Dad was in recovery, went down, was Betty Ford?
He went to Orange County
For recovery. And his dad said his ego got in the way, but he was working with a physician in Portland. And the physician had dreams of starting a clinic. And Dad and Mom said, okay, we've got this property where they start where it is now, and helped him build it. And through it all, he was a physician, but not a businessman. So we ended up, Austin Industries ended up, the bank was foreclosing. They bought it from the bank, and we provided managerial support to get it up and running, and then we sold it to Betty Ford.
Yeah, it's it was super cool because when Dad had felt that this was talking about his ego, like, well, his alcoholism, he was a professional with this fancy company, he just didn't have all that in common with the other, local people, which is what he refers back to. It's just, that's just not true. Alcoholics are alcoholics. It doesn't matter where you come from. But he really felt there was, and I believe that there is a need for, say, like a doctor or dentist, because people rely on those for their health and well-being if they know they have a drug problem or alcohol problem and stuff. So Hazleton was built, we'll call it Springbrook Northwest was its original name.
Okay.
Was built for the professional. And it has kind of a nickname of the country clubs of recovery, which is something they're trying to remove and by opening it to everybody now, which is really good. Okay. Hazleton's an incredible organization to be part of, and the kind of the publishing company they have. Like when I got sober, some of and still are my favorite books are through the Hazleton Publishing. And we gave them a grant along with the school district. They're doing a program there to help kids just learn how to deal with, like, organizing your time and how to deal with bullies. And I guess they love it. The school came back to us and said, and it wasn't Hazleton asking for money this time. It was the school saying, we love this program. This is something we want to keep doing. So anyway, it's really cool.
I heard rumors at one point there's, like, across from the Allison, like on Mountain View, like where the orchard was, that was taken down. There's going to be a new building there. I don't know if that was just rumor, if that was actually part of the plan.
Rumor. Yeah, there's no building going there.
Okay, want to make sure. Don't tell people, like, I think there's something going in there.
No, that's planned. The master plan has that as housing.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So no, there's not an expansion. The Hazleton has their own land. They have another block, like big chunk of land if they wanted to grow.
Okay, yeah. So the hazelnut orchards, were they just taken down because they weren't being?
They had blight.
They're diseased.
Okay.
A lot of the old hazelnut orchards have blight, and they look terrible, and basically the only way to take care of it is remove them and
burn it and stuff.
Burn it, because the amount of chemicals you've got to spread on them to keep them kind of going, producing, but eventually they'll die.
Okay. Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But Oregon State's developed a blight-resistant variety of hazelnut. So all the new orchards that are probably last 15 years are being planted with the new variety.
Okay.
Your little guys.
Now, one of the things we hadn't mentioned yet, Loni, was with art elements. That was one of the major things that you were involved with, and I mean, still are. So how did that get started? What's the story with art
You probably don't even know about my whole little empire.
No, I don't.
That's what my empire, my land lovers. So, I spent a lot of time volunteering in the schools. I taught art and did all this work and doing art literacy programs and stuff. And then, in fact, I taught in St. Paul high school art. So when my kids graduated, and one of them jokingly said, you know, you need to get a life, Mom. It's not us anymore. And I was just like, ouch. But they were so right. And it was a really great time in the market. And I've always loved old buildings. Mom and Dad and I would run by the Dairy Queen, grab an ice cream cone, drive around and go, oh, look at that the house. Isn't that cool? Look at that building. Remember when it was Flatters, you know, blah, da, 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 da. Anyway, I really wanted a downtown building just to fix up. I don't know why I think I used to hang out with Dad in the garage and want to build stuff too, right? So I thought, what a cool thing to do for my kids is to have these two girls become independent, strong women. I should get a house and have them like flip it. That would be a good thing. So I wanted to do that, but the market was so hot. Nobody in Newburgh would return my phone call for this little cottage kind of thing I'm looking for downtown. And so I finally went online and I saw the Kelly Group's website. And I thought, okay, there's a way I can contact someone. And I wrote, and they answered back. That's how I met Rita Wolf.
Okay.
Yeah, my best friend. And I started looking at places, and I bought. What I went to look at was really weird. Is where I grew up as a kid. And I said, no, that's not it. And she's like, well, what do you want? And I said, I want a little cute fixer-upper cottage downtown Newburgh. I mean, she called me in 2 days. And I got this pocket listing. It's really cute. Oh, it's cute. So I bought it, and the girls did all the work on it. And then during that time, it's the same story as Mom when they were helping the farmers with their land. They would say, Joanne, do you want to buy my farm? I know you'll take care of it. People are like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, girls are blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, I'm selling my house. I would love to have you have it. So I started buying these houses, and all of a sudden now I get like better ones and cooler ones, and they're all old, and they're all around the cultural center area. And then I bought the Art Elements building, knowing I'd make a gallery out of it. But I had 13 properties in town.
Okay.
Like over 4 years, I think I bought them. And I just have a couple left to develop, which is exciting. I had kind of put it on hold when Mom passed. It was taking care of Dad and focusing on that. And then when Dad passed, we had the lawsuits, all that turmoil, and then now Kenny and I, our positions on the board and all these responsibilities, and I'm the chair of the foundation, and all these things have been really busy. And I've noticed this last year I've been able to free up my dreaming machine again. And the mill building, I have that, the one on Main, the old mill, has Rita's picture on it. Yeah, so I've always wanted to do like a maker space, art, something art related, Autumn Cara is now open, and my friend she's back from Texas. She helped me open the gallery and my Lionsgate bed and breakfast that I had. And she's like, well, Loni, instead of doing the giant one, why don't you start small, try it at Autumn Cara? So I am looking at starting this maker space. Makers on Main. Got a name for it already. I'm working on the idea of the logo, but I've had the opportunity after helping found, the Cultural Center, all these people that I know that could help make this thing work. It'd have to be a nonprofit and stuff, but I'm going to start small and then maybe grow it across the street and do that whole big art scene down on Main Street.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, I wondered actually that I mentioned that building. I always wondered, like, what is that building? What is it going to be? So there's eventually plans for that. So you're starting with, where's that? Cara?
It's right across from Nara Teriyaki.
Okay. And then right across
the other way is the mill building.
Yeah, Anvil Academy's in there.
Yeah, so I've basically give them the building, and they're looking at maybe getting the sawdusters in. Those are
Be quiet on that one.
Oh, I already
Okay.
they know.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
give his name. So anyway, and I've got these great people that helped with the building of the cultural center that I think can help make this happen.
Yeah.
Very excited about that. And I've been trying to sell buildings, but I just hit the market a little too late. Like the recipe, I really wanted to sell that. But it's rented, so that's good.
Okay. I didn't realize that was your building.
Then Pulp and Circumstance, and I've got some really amazing buildings. So it's just quiet. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I first bought them, it was like, what's she doing?
Yeah.
She's running the town. I'm like, no, not. I look at them like children, right? And then I'd fix them up and modernize them. And then I'd have these amazing tenants. And they just sort of cherish them. And like Pulp and Circumstance, they've been there 14 years. Autumn Care was there 14 years. It's really great.
Well, I got one more question for each of you. I'll kind of break it into two, actually. So one is, given your position in the community and with your parents, I mean, I think a lot of people in many ways look up to your parents and see them as role models, which that's really the heart of this podcast, is to highlight people who've done a lot. And it's not, I mean, you mentioned the word ego a lot of times. It's not about ego, but it's about how can we, there's a sense of responsibility. Like how can we set a tone for what this community is? And, especially on social media, there's a lot of tendency for people to do a lot of backbiting and talking and complaining.
Of course.
Doesn't accomplish anything. And that was one of the major reasons I wanted to get the word out about this podcast and spread, hey, how can we have messages of hope, of positivity, and say, hey, let's focus on the good. Let's focus on the things we can control, take care of our neighbor, love each other. And I think you guys have really exemplified that really well. So with that, what message would each of you like to give to the community? And then alongside of that, what gives you hope for the future of Newburgh?
Boy, thinking about it, we try not to say we're for this, for that, other than on a personal level. And I think I'm going to say this, what happened with the school board and everything, I see it very bad and I see it very good. It got the community energized about the school system, what they're teaching, how everything went about. I feel very sad about how, depending on which group you're in. And, we worked with both sides of that, one in the school system of STEM, with other people trying to help the mental needs of the community, especially teenagers and that sort of thing. So I think you have to, what I would say is, set aside your political beliefs. Look out for your neighbor. Bottom line, look out for your neighbor, help them. When Dad grew up, he lived on a dairy, and he said, if the neighbor didn't have money to buy milk, they would take a gallon of milk or whatever because they had plenty. And I think we have to kind of approach it that way, help your neighbor. It's not based on anything else. It's just help each other out.
Yeah. We're not in this alone, and we can't be. We're not going to make it if we're all like siloed. I'm out for myself. It's we truly need to help each other and be kind and listen and try to find. And I hope, and I think that I feel like that's what at least I feel like my role tries to be. I just don't get involved in political stuff. I would rather be a bridge on how do we find commonalities? How can we solve the problem? Mom was so good. She would have been really great. She worked both sides of the party. Like, let's find a solution. This is your belief and this is your, but like, let's work it out. Let's, everyone's so polarized now. That just broke my heart to see how that went down. And I think the community learned a lot about maybe what we don't want to do and approach things. So I just, be kind, listen, try to find a solution,
And you make a really good point, actually, about the listening part. And I notice myself, even sometimes it's easy to jump to conclusions. You hear something, a rumor, and then you begin just believing that as truth, and it hasn't been confirmed. And just as an example, it's very obvious. Everyone knows, Dave Brown is one of the big public enemy number ones. And I remember feeling like I started believing some of the things. I actually sat down and we had coffee together and realized, and sure, we may not see eye to eye on everything, but I realized his heart in many ways is actually really good. He's actually a really kind person, and maybe the way some of the things happen, sure, I can understand why people disagree with. But just the act of if there's something you disagree with, find a way to get together, have coffee, have a conversation, rather than arguing over Facebook on stuff.
I understand.
Yeah, social media is...
It's not good.
Talk about blight. That's
there's your blight right there. Well, I remember having debates with people, and it was healthy. You believe one way, I believe another, and we talk about it. I'll learn something new, and you'll learn something new, and there we go. We're still friends, and that seems to be gone. Yeah. And I don't, there's not tolerance for things. I don't know.
I think, like you said, I think we have learned a lot. And for me personally, that's what gives me hope, as I've seen we've come together. And I guess that's the second part of the question is what, for each of you, what gives you hope for the future? I guess both for the Austin Parrish family and for Newburgh.
Well, family work together because you've got, there's seven families right now. And that includes spouses. Anyway, there's 14 different voices at the table when we sit down and meet. And overall, we work pretty well together. There's a few things we disagree on, but at the end of the day, I think we go home and we may not agree with you, but we respect the decision that was made. And sitting here in Newburgh, or living here in this community, I see it has so much potential if people start dreaming. You've got an opportunity to build a unbelievable community. Now, maybe you're not, and I'm going to say wine, but you could actually say farm products. You've got across the river, you've got this huge up to the river, but St. Paul area, that's a huge agricultural area. You've got the wineries, you've got so many things, and we're so close. We're, I'm going to say an hour from here to the beach, and an hour and a half to ski. It's about 2 hours, both, or an hour and a half, add a half hour. But, we're located in such a beautiful area. When the sun's out, this area is just gorgeous. And I think we need to keep that feeling of ruralness, embrace the modern era, but remember where our roots came from. I think that is probably going to be what's going to help us long term. We've got, I don't know how many churches are in the community. If they talk to each other, work together, I think we can do great things. Even if you're not a religious person, you'll get involved. Join a service club. Do things I think one of the best things I ever did was join Rotary. Dad was in Rotary, so it was kind of natural. I'd follow him. But one of the things Dad did is put together a donation where A-dec donates 100 dental units a year to the Rotary Clubs of Newburgh. And with that, the Noon Club has set up huge scholarship funds. The Early Bird, which I'm a member, we now have over $1 million in our endowment. So every year we are able to give back to the community through the Rotary Club, through different things. So, and we're very, Rotary, I mean, if you get involved with Rotary and do the 4-way test, so many things. Look at the Boy Scout law. So that motto. You know, you go through some of the things that have been around for very long time, and live by those. I think we'd be a great community. I think there's some great opportunities.
How about you, Lon?
Well, I actually have a lot of hope with the young people. And I am just so impressed with George Fox and the graduates, so students that are there. I've had the opportunity to have some employees that came from George Fox, but they're who they are as people. I love that. And if more people were like that, and I know a lot tend to stay. You moved here from the school, right? Your experience from George Fox, yeah. Right? You know, and there's a lot of people in it. That gives me great hope, because the morality and basis for how you believe is like the heart of giving. I mean, look what you're doing. Daniel, it's really cool. I love your podcast, and you're celebrating kindness and the positivity, and it's those sorts of things, and that gives me great hope. And I think that people sat silent during the fight because they were afraid to get in the fray of it. And I think today people are more willing to just do what they believe and to give back and to be kind and to listen and find common ground. And I think Newburgh's ripe for that. And I have a couple, I'm riding horses again, my granddaughters, I'm back in the horse world. And I've got a couple of teenagers part of my life now. They're amazing. They're good kids. I think our future's bright. But it all just goes back, help them navigate the social media stuff and, and just be kind. Just those things we have to drive home. And I think a small community like this, we still watch out for each other. And it's small enough we go to the grocery store and see people we know, and the truckers know us. And we just had a family retreat here and brought some more counselors in from out of state. And we were at Rosmarino's for dinner, and, they're like watching us talk to people. And they're like, this is a small town. And it's like, yeah, it's cool. It's a small town. We take care of each other. And I like that. It gives me hope.
Well, thank you both for, for all you do. Thank you for coming on today and sharing a bit about your parents and what you guys are doing. And it's great to have you a part of the community. I appreciate you. I know a lot of people appreciate you. I think a lot of people don't express this. I found that a lot of people who do great things, everyone always assumes that everyone's always telling them how grateful they are for that. So I hear a lot of people saying their gratitude for you. I don't know how much you hear, but I do know that you're very appreciated. And I think it also just says a lot for your parents, because there was a stat I'm sure you guys are familiar with 90% of families who have a lot of wealth or a big business, 90% of families to the third generation don't make it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you guys have your family is still strong and intact really says a lot for the foundation that you guys have. And I think that gives me great hope for, I think you set a great example of, hey, here's how to do this, here's how to do family well too. I'm sure there's hard conversations and all that, but staying together is amazing. So thank you both.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I know we are, this is probably one of the longer podcasts I've done, but I appreciate it. It's great to hear the story.
Yeah.
Thank you both for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Givingtown podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think might benefit from hearing it. While more and more people are continuing to hear about this podcast, I still need your help to spread the message about all the people and organizations that make Newburgh so great. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.